You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P. Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the South Africa's Olympian swimmer, Julia Vincent. How are you doing today?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to compete professionally in swimming?
Well, I'm not much of a swimmer. I will say I'm a diver. So, swimming, not really my thing, but diving, I just love the adrenaline thrill. You got to really be some kind of crazy to want to throw yourself off of high platforms and do a lot of tricks and flips. But I grew a passion for the sport. I loved it from the day I started, and I've loved it every day since. And I just really like the adrenaline, and there's something different about being put under pressure and to have to perform right on the spot. As compared to all the other sports I've had, it just gave me a thrill that I couldn't find anywhere else. So, yeah.
What was your experience like going to college and going to the South Carolina Gamecocks to compete in diving?
I loved my experience at South Carolina. It was the best choice for me at the time. I feel so grateful to have gone and competed for them and to have had that family and that team. It was a long way from home. At the time, I was quite young, and it was about 8,000 miles from home. So to be able to compete with people I considered my family was great. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot being away from my actual family, and I just learned a lot. Just going through the experience as a collegiate athlete.
What was that transition like for you, as you said, being so far away from your family and being an international student at South Carolina?
I would say that it was different, but it was so beneficial. I can't recommend it enough to other international athletes just because you really learn how to grow up, and you really learn just a different world, and you sort of have to be you force yourself into a sort of an uncomfortable situation, and you lean on the people around you. You find people that you can call family for the rest of your life. And a lot of those people are my best friends still to this day. A lot of those people on the team, I talk to them every day. So it was a great experience, and I definitely feel like I learned a lot about myself and just life in general.
How was that experience like getting to represent the Gamecocks and putting on that swimsuit for South Carolina?
Amazing. I'm still a huge Gamecock fan. I loved it. It was an adjustment, because yelling "Go Cox" is an interesting thing, but people just do it in the South and in South Carolina, and that was very normal. So that was an adjustment. But for me, it was a huge privilege, and I really felt the love, like I said, from my team. So every time I put on that swimsuit, and I had that Gamecock on my chest, on my back, I just felt like you know my team's behind me, and I want to make them proud.
Throughout your collegiate time, what were some of your biggest accomplishments out South Carolina?
I think probably I'd say I was SEC champion in 2017, I think it was, on the 3 meter springboard. And then in 2018, I came second on 1 meter and third on 3 meter at the NCAA championship. So I would say those were probably my accomplishments that I feel most proud of.
Of course, after your collegiate time, what was it like getting into the international and going nationally to compete for South Africa?
I would say that the collegiate experience very much helped me. We compete on such a regular basis within the collegiate system. And so going, after competition after competition after competition, and then just going straight into the international circuit was made it a lot easier. You don't feel so intimidated by the competition anymore. And you're like, well, I do this basically every couple of weeks anyway. So this is just like any other day. And I definitely think that that helped. Obviously, not every competition in the US when we were doing it collegiately was as competitive as the world stage, but at SECs and NCAAs, there are a lot of international athletes, and it does kind of feel like you're at a world event because there's so many other athletes that are highly competitive and compete for their countries.
What was that feeling like for you to get to represent South Africa and put on that swimsuit for them?
Amazing. I really love my country, and I think to come from a country that doesn't have much, and we don't things don't come as easy, and we you have to really work hard for what you want, and that's not to say that other countries don't have to, but there are a lot of obstacles that I think some first world countries don't understand that we go through as South African athletes and as a developing country, and so it means a lot when you put that swimsuit on and have the flag on your swimsuit, and just to feel like, all right, well, I got myself here. That's a big enough accomplishment as it is, and you can go out and feel less pressured to do to to feel like you have to perform. You've already done the hard part, which is getting them.
Of course, in 2015, what was that experience like getting to compete at the World Quans and Championship?
At the 2015, is that what you said?
Hmm.
That was my second world championship, so that was probably the most terrifying of them all. Because the first one I was like, well, I'm here, this is cool, and the second one I just felt like I probably had to perform better, and I was still in a transitionary phase. I had just gotten to South Carolina. I had barely had a year with my coach at the time, and so there's a lot of transition that happens, and it was challenging. I think that was one of my most challenging competitions to go to because it's there's a lot of change, and you're just trying to figure it all out. So it was fun, but it was challenging for me.
During that time, what was that like balancing being a collegiate athlete for South Carolina and also being a national player?
I will say you learn time management very quickly. There were a lot of times where I had to do my work on the road. And as a student athlete, that's what we had to do all the time anyway. So you begin to get quite good at that. I mean, we had to do it all the time. We would travel to dual meets, we'd travel to SECs, and you had to be working all the way through. So it was challenging from a time perspective only because there were sometimes conflicts between my national competitions and my collegiate competitions. And so there was actually one competition where I had to leave. I left SECs halfway through after I competed, and I went straight to Rio for the World Cup because they just fell on the same week. So, at times it took some planning to make sure we could make both work. But yeah, it just you learn a lot about time management, that's for sure.
What was that training like preparing for Rio in 2016?
That was an interesting time in my life because you know it I don't know that I was so grateful to have qualified, but I didn't feel completely ready, and so I was an emotional wreck the whole time. I mean, I was so excited, but at the same time it was just challenging because I knew that there was a lot to be done going into the Olympics, and um I was just stressed a lot, and I had to lean on a lot of people, and um I had a lot of good people around me who helped me with that, so I was grateful for that.
How was that feeling like for you when you did make that team in Rio in 2016 to go to the Olympics?
That's a feeling that I will remember, forever, because I was actually in one of my summer classes, and I hadn't learned that it was official until it was I think it was a month or two later. After I did my trial, I had won the trial, but they didn't tell us if we are officially going. And I was sitting in one of my summer classes, and I got the email telling me that I was going, and I had to just keep it cool the whole time. I mean, I couldn't until I left the class. So I remember sitting there, so I can see it. I can see myself sitting in that classroom and being so internally excited, but I just had to sit and listen to the professor. So that was interesting.
Of course, after that class was over with, what was that feeling like when you did get to celebrate that you did make that team to go to Rio?
It was great. I got to tell my friend, I was texting my friends already and my family, but it was great. We at the time I was almost like so hopeful that I was already like, yes, I'm going. So it wasn't a huge shock when I found out, but it was definitely a huge relief, thinking, okay, it's officially happening. I can stop worrying that it might not happen and I can just continue to, focus on my training.
How was that feeling like the first time you got to receive your gear with the Olympic rings and was in Rio competing?
That was a really fun experience, just getting all the new stuff. It's different to the stuff that you get when you travel to World Aquatic events because there's different sponsors. So I know what I expect to get when I'm going to the World Aquatics Championships or anything like that. But for Olympics, it's a different, completely different sponsor. So that was cool. It was all new. I'd never received any of this stuff from these sponsors before, so that was a lot of fun, and I could rep it and wear it, and I had a lot of stuff, so that was a lot of fun.
As a diver, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto that diving board in Rio at the Olympics?
Terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. It's something that I've actually never been able, I've no other competition has ever been able, like ever replicated that feeling that I had when I stood up on that board for the first time in 2016. It was just there were so many people, and you feel like this weight of this much on the line, even though there might not be. There's really not that much on the line. It's just you do your best and move on with life. But I definitely felt the weight of everyone in those stands. But the cool thing was I on where my springboard was, if I looked to the right, I actually had my mom and my best friend sitting in the stands, and they were in the first row, so I could stand on the board and look them in the eyes, which was really a unique experience. And I'm so grateful for that because I don't think everyone gets to have that, but it was terrifying. I mean, I was shaking all over.
How was that experience like having your friends and family there, getting to see you compete at the biggest stage?
That was amazing. It made me feel little bit more at ease and calm, and I don't think there was much that could take away those nerves, but like I said, to be able to look to my right and just see them sitting right there as if I'm just, you know, at any other practice or any other competition with my mom around, that was really, really nice.
While at Rio, what were some of your favorite memories and moments competing for Rio?
Well, I got to take a picture and meet Simone Biles, so that I thought was pretty cool. But I guess the athlete village is something that you don't get that kind of experience where you have just that, I don't know how many, but I would assume at least a couple. I mean, at least 1,000 athletes, all from all over the world, different sports, and we're all just in the same place. And you're in the dining hall together, and you can go and watch other events. And so we would try to go and watch other big events happen, and that was a lot of fun.
What was that feeling like, obviously, as you said, getting to meet Simone Biles and knowing that both of y'all are on the Olympic stage together?
Uh, Interesting because you see Simone Biles as this incredible athlete and so well known, and I was on at no not even close to the level that she was, but it's cool to see that we're in the same place. We might not be the same athletes, and she's obviously been way more successful in her career, but it was just cool to have. I mean, I was sitting and eating breakfast next to her, and that was just cool. That was just a really like unique experience where you're like, all right, well, I've made it in some definition of that word.
What were some of your favorite memories and moments competing in Rio?
um I mean, I guess I've probably touched on all of that. It was really scary. So I enjoyed it, but I've had more fun competitions because it can be pretty nerve-wracking, and you almost forget that really it's just about having a great time, enjoying the Olympic spirit.
Of course, after Rio, what was that training like getting to prepare for your next Olympic journey?
That was challenging in some ways, just because I think this happens at every competition, but once you've sort of hit that peak, and then you've got to come back home from such a adrenaline thrilling experience. It can a lot of things can feel like a letdown. So I had to go right back into my collegiate season. So that really helped me because I was like, well, it's like any other time. I just have to keep going. But I do feel like I probably hit a bit of a low at some point, within that next year, just because, it's challenging to come back and be like, all right, well, what is my next goal? What do I have to figure out going forward now? Because that was a huge goal that I just accomplished, and now I have to figure out what's the next thing that I want to do.
Coming back and getting back into your collegiate journey, what was that experience like coming back on the college swimming after competing at the biggest stage?
Um, there was a weird sense of pressure, but then also a little bit more of comfortability. So, the pressure was like, okay, well, anyone that does know that I was at the Olympics, now I feel like, okay, well, I have to perform like I was an Olympian, right? I have to now make sure that I look good. But then on the other side of that, I was like, okay, well, I can be comfortable in knowing that I've been on the biggest stage, and this doesn't need to be that, that nerve-wracking or that scary to compete here anymore because of the comparison between the two. So it was a very interesting, there was definitely like a yin yang to that coming back.
What was that training like for you going to your second Olympics and getting to compete at your second Olympics?
A whole different experience, completely different, just because COVID had hit, and we were still going through COVID during the Olympics, and so there were no people in the stands. The the opening ceremony in 2016 was, I didn't mention this, but it was probably my favorite part. I mean, it was so loud. I've never been in anything so extravagant in my life, and just the way that you feel when you're walking around on that field, and then you go to Tokyo and there was not a single soul in the stadium, and you're just walking around with your athletes, and that's a really cool experience, and it all means the same, but people can really change an experience. And it was a competing was fun. I didn't feel as nervous. I didn't do as well as I wanted to, but I didn't feel as nervous. I think I just, things happen on the day, but it was definitely a very different experience.
Of course, leading up to the 2020 Olympics, what was that training like preparing to make your second Olympic journey?
My training was going well. Yeah, everything looked good. It The hardest part was COVID, and the fact that it was a constant stress of, if we travel to this meet, are we going to get COVID? Is there any point in going to this meet? Should we just bypass it so that we don't, risk the COVID? And so that was really challenging. It all worked out in the end, obviously. And both my teammate, Michaela Bauta, who she was at the Olympics with me in Tokyo, we both made it, and that was great. But it was really stressful. It was really stressful. The training itself was good. It just, we had to overcome some obstacles.
How was that feeling like getting to make that Olympic team and going to Tokyo?
I think I had an expectation that I was gonna do that. I decided in my mind, like, that's what I want to do. I want to do this, and that's what I'm gonna do. But so I think now that I had made it one time, it made it easier for me to be like, I can do, not easily, but I can do this again. I can feel encouraged that I can do this again. And so it was a huge relief. It was a little stressful because we had left it down to the last. There was there's a bunch of different ways to qualify, and we had one spot. We needed two spots for my event so that we could both go, and we left it to the 2 months before the Olympics to qualify that spot, but we did it, and everything was good. So that was a huge relief when we were able to qualify that spot.
What were some of the things that you took from your time at Rio in your first Olympics to help you in your second Olympics?
um I definitely think I just learned how to sort of stay a little bit more even keel, like, and be like, this is just like every other competition. I see these people at all the other world events that I've been to, and so that was helpful. I mean, like I said, the difference in the atmosphere was huge because you weren't allowed to have spectators, so it felt like I was at any other competition, and so that was very helpful. But I definitely think that the shock of being at the Olympics, I didn't feel that when I was in Tokyo, and that was very helpful.
Of course, what are some of your routines and rituals like preparing for your swim meets?
So I mean, a lot of it has to do with mental training. We obviously do a lot of physical training throughout the week, but I think a lot of what my training includes is just being able to compete under pressure on the spot. And sometimes we work on that during practice. And I just, I tried to, I think hopefully I have a better perspective now than I did 10 years ago. But, life is about more than, I think I try to remind myself life is about more than competing and diving. And so takes the pressure off me having to try to be perfect all the time. So yeah, a lot of it is that mental training and just really enjoying the journey as you go along.
When at the Olympics, what is that feeling like getting to know that all of your hard work paid off and that you're at the biggest stage?
I mean, it's a great feeling. It's definitely, I think it's great to be there, but I'm an athlete that doesn't, I want to be able to, I'm never satisfied. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because often I'll leave a competition feeling like, man, I feel like I could have done a better job, no matter how well I do. So, it feels like, oh, your hard work did pay off and you got to where you wanted to be. But I always feel like I want to do better, and I always, have a different goal in mind. So it's good. It's a good feeling, but I'm always striving for more.
How did it feel to have the Olympic rings on your African swimsuit?
Great. I don't know that we had it on our swimsuit, but we had it on our all of our other clothing, and obviously I've kept all of those. I don't often wear them because I don't know. To me, it's a little weird. Like I don't want to feel like I'm walking around and boasting. I don't know. So I don't often wear those clothes, but it's cool to be able to, see it on the clothing. And if I do happen to put it on, it just reminds me, well, that was a really cool experience that you had.
What does the feeling feel like to have OLY behind your last name?
Um, Honestly, I don't think about that much, but it's cool when you say it like that.
Of course, how has it been like obviously getting to meet your fans and having them recognize you and ask for your autographs?
So I feel like I don't have a ton, at least that I've never really met. If I have fans, I haven't met a lot of them. But I think the cool part for me is meeting the kids that have looked up to me in South Africa. So they'll ask me for my autograph, and they look starstruck, and I'm like reminding them it's just me. Like I don't. It's fun because they're small kids, and they love the sport, and they look up to me, and I feel very honored that that's they've chosen me to look up to.
What has it been like obviously getting to live out your Olympic dream and making it to the Olympics, not once but twice?
Um, it's great. I'm going. I like I said, I'm never satisfied, and I always have more that I want to do. So, um, I do think about the past, but I don't often hold on to the past, good or bad, because things can change so quickly. So I'm just always striving to the next thing, and so I'm striving for Paris, and that's where my focus is currently.
What was that feeling like having that at the Olympics, having that "Mama, I made it" moment?
It was it was cool. It was cool. And like I said at the first Olympics, it was great that she could be there. That my mom actually could see, hey, you actually did make it.
Who are some of the swimmers that you look up to and divers that you look up to in the swimming and diving world?
I've you know, I've always looked up to the girls that I compete against. And so I wouldn't say I have one particular person that I look up to. I've always found it hard to answer that question. But, there are people in the British team, the Chinese team, the Canadian team, the Australian team that I've always really looked up to and been like, I would love to dive like them. And, one day, and that's the best part is when you get to compete next to them and side by side. Like that's the real cool part is I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could compete with these girls. I can do something like this.
Who are some of your inspirations and idols that have shaped you into the diver that you are today?
Um, one of my inspirations is my mom. Not, she doesn't know much about diving, but she's definitely shaped me into who I am today. Um, she's a really, really strong lady. She raised me and my twin brother all on her own. So she's taught me what it she's taught me how to be strong, and she showed me what it looks like to be, tenacious and to persevere through every hard time. So she's a huge inspiration of mine, and there are a lot of people on my journey who've helped me get me to where I am today. And they're, they're just moral support, anything like that. That those are the people that inspire me to keep going and to do better.
Of course, what has that transition been like as an Olympian going from life after the Olympics?
Pretty normal, if I'm being honest, because my career hasn't ended. So, and I always, like I said, I'm always looking forward to the next. I'm just looking forward. So, um, it's just like everyday life to me. I mean, I'm just looking forward to the next competition. I'm constantly trying to see if I can improve on what I did. My last competition. So,
What are some of your favorite memories and moments representing South Africa?
just doing it with my team, like in Tokyo, I got to have a teammate there. In Rio, I was on my own as a diver, so I had a big team of people, but I didn't know very many of them. And especially, the swimming and diving is a little bit close together in the aquatic sports, but it was really nice to have a teammate that was my diving teammate, and we've been through a long journey together. And she just retired, so it was a really cool experience to have, her last meet together. Um, and for me to be there for it, so that's one of my favorite things, I think. And just meeting new people. I love to meet new people, and I love to meet the other athletes that are also wearing that South African flag, you know on their kit somewhere. So yeah, I definitely, that's been a great experience.
What does it mean to you to represent South Africa as an Olympian diver?
It means a lot. Yeah, it means a lot. Like I said, it's for hard for South Africans to get to the stage, I think, because of the lack of resources and stuff that we have. So it means a lot for me to actually have done it and gotten myself there.
What are some of your future plans in your diving career moving forward?
Well, the next big thing is the Olympics in Paris next year, and that's my main focus right now. Um, I like to, my big plans. I've always said this, like my biggest plan is, or my biggest goal is to medal at the Olympics. That would be amazing. And I would be crazy if I was, I mean, I just feel like that's where I've got to strive. And if I do anything under that, then great. But I would love to do something big at the next Olympics. We have another world championship coming up. It's in February next year. It would be great, to do a good job there, and maybe, I don't know, see how high I can finish there. But we'll see. We'll see. I just, my plan is to just keep working towards what's next, and hopefully the results will take care of themselves.
As you look forward to Paris, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to the most when competing in Paris?
Well, Paris is a cool place, so I'm excited that it's in Paris. Um, so I would love to explore a little bit and really get to see some of the other sports and all of that stuff. I think my family's going to be able to get out there, so that'd be amazing to have them there and to just explore Paris with them. Um, Obviously, I would love to do a good job for my country and for myself, and achieve some of my big goals that I have. But um, yeah, I mean, it would just mean a lot, because I've always said to myself it would be kind of cool if I could be a three-time Olympian, and that's what I've been striving for. So that, fingers crossed, that's what it's going to be.
Of course, what advice would you have those collegiate divers out there looking to compete on the college level?
um, I think the biggest thing I struggle with collegiately, and it cost me a lot at a lot of competitions, is I always felt like I needed to be perfect to do a good job. And so when I strived to be perfect, I ended up doing the complete opposite of perfect, and doing something that I never normally do in practice or anything like that. So I think it's just to take it one dive at a time, and to just try stay steady. Everyone at the collegiate level will probably at some point miss a dive, and so you just have to remember that if you're the most consistent person out there, you can absolutely win the event. So I think that's something that don't wait to do a good job or to do something big collegiately to feel comfortable. To feel comfortable to do something big. Just do your thing, stay in your lane, and see where that puts you. I think sometimes we think too much of the results and what, the performance of, the medals or whatever it is. just sort of stay dive by dive.
What advice would you give those swimmers and divers on the college level looking to compete at the Olympics while still in college, like you have?
Manage your time well. That's probably the biggest thing, is manage your time well, um, and be ready for the sacrifice. I think I never had a break, and well, I did. I guess I had 2 weeks after every big meet. So at the end of every summer, that was the only break I had. And so I think a lot of people, they wait for the summer and they're like, "Oh, yay, I have the summer. I can take a time." That's when the international season picks up. So there's no break. You go from the heaviest part of your collegiate season right into the heaviest part of your international season, and I think you almost have to embrace it and really enjoy the grind. Otherwise, it's going to be really challenging to want to do both.
What advice would you give those future swimmers out there looking to compete nationally on their respective countries level?
Um, a similar sort of a similar mindset. You've got to embrace the grind. I really enjoy the everyday mundane things. I love to wake up and go to practice, and you know sometimes it's not as easy. It's sometimes it's challenging if you're sore, if your body's tired. But I really enjoy, especially I've got a great team, and really lean on your teammates, and enjoy the little things, because you don't really get to the big things without the little things. And those little moments in practice, and getting through a hard workout, that you don't get to those really awesome achievements without doing that. So you got to almost find a way to embrace that.
What advice would you give those first time Olympians and even multiple time Olympians competing at the Olympics?
um I would say try not to be perfect, because that's something I struggled with, and I've been working on it for many years, and I'm going to continue to work on it, where I don't feel the need to be perfect, and I can just dive like I normally do every day in practice. If I do what I do in practice, then I'll be just fine in the competition. And I think sometimes um, we all try to be too perfect instead of just doing what we always do. So yeah, I would just take it dive by dive.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
My Instagram, I think it's Jules_Vincent 10. Um, I have a TikTok. I don't really use it. I don't even know what, you could probably search my name. I don't really know what you'd find. Um, yeah, I don't really use a lot of social media. I sometimes use Instagram. So yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Thank you again, Jewel Vincent, for your interview, and best luck in your future as a South Africa's Olympian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you today.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Julia Vincent, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.